Morning guys, welcome back to another video. So I haven't uploaded in a while, but whether you are in Lord, you can probably imagine, due to COVID, lockdown here in the UK, then lost a job for myself, then get a new job, weather, just all sorts. But we're back into another video today. So this, hopefully, into something like this. So stay tuned. We're going to try and keep this one short and sweet and just to the point, and explain how we go from a rusty old brake disc and pads to a nice new set. Right guys, as mentioned, straight into it. So the first thing you have to do is remove your rear caliper to free your pads and disc. So to do that, you're going to have to remove two bolts that are sat just behind this caliper. So I've put the ring spanner on the top one and then the ratchet spanner on the bottom, just so you can roughly see where you're going. Now for me to undo these, bear in mind that this car has been off the road 7 years or so, so stuff has been worn, let's say worn and rusted in time, so these aren't coming out easily. But for this one, get your ring spanner on secure and then use a hammer and then persuade it to come undone, and also make sure you use plenty of, whether it's WD-40 or lubricant, to try and help loosen the bolt. For the bottom one, on this spanner, you want to use the ratchet ring side of it, secure it on the nut, and then what I've done for this one is use my breaker bar and then sit the breaker bar in the rear subframe and then apply pressure to the spanner. Obviously the spanner was slightly hard to start with, but I managed to loosen this one off as well, and then just apply pressure on the breaker bar and that one should come loose as well. And then just lastly, that I don't know if these are 17 from factory or whether they've shed some weight or rusted over the years, but I'm using the 17 on both nuts and managed to loosen them. So we'll get these loosened off and then we'll go on to the next step. Right guys, so once you've taken these two nuts out, which you've explained, keep your caliper on your disc, because next you need to try and free your clip and then your two pins to be able to release your pads. Again, as you've seen, we've done the other side, and this was a big issue that we came across where these did not want to come out, nor did the clip. So we ordered replacement clips, but we managed to get the pins out on the other side of the car. So we're hoping we can get the pins out without damaging them on this side, as otherwise we'll have to order replacements. So plenty of lubricant on the clip and the pins, and then just by keeping the caliper on here, it gives you a bit of leverage to hit the pins from the inside out. But that's what we're going to do next. So we've taken the first bit out just using some long nose pliers. Just grab the bottom of the pin fairly firmly and then just try and wiggle it out, obviously with the lubricant, and it should come out. If it doesn't and you do end up bending it, then you can source replacement clips. But the bottom ones come out fine, so we're just going to try and take the top one on now. There you go. That one's come out a lot better than the other side did. The other side was completely butchered, so we may be able to use this one. Otherwise we have got replacements that we can use. But yeah, onto the pins. Right guys, just a small update. So as you saw us probably on the last clip, remove the clip, and then since then all I've been doing is getting a hammer and then trying to hit the back of these pins. There's not, I don't know if you can see, there's not much room to play with. So, and with brake lines and stuff, there's not much throw you can get on the hammer, so it's just sort of short bursts of hitting it. But as you can see, the bottom one has freed up a little bit, and then when you get, where's that gone? When you get it out so far, you get some long nose pliers and slip it onto the pin like that, and then if you sort of give it some pressure, then you can normally wiggle the pin out the rest of the way. Like I said, this car's not moved for years, and these are severely stuck in. If it's a car that you're using daily, you shouldn't have this issue. The pin should come out a lot easier, but hopefully this helps anybody out. But yeah, I'm going to use the pliers on the rest of this one and wiggle this pin out, and unfortunately it's more hitting and trying to get this one free, as I haven't got enough room here to slide the long nose pliers on yet. But yeah, hopefully when we free that one, we'll be up with another update. Right guys, what feels like an absolute eternity later, we've managed to get that second pin out, and it's not pretty, as you can see. It's absolutely bashed, but no special or super technique way of getting it out. It was literally this body hammer that I had, and I've used the pointed end and sort of repeatedly just kept it in the top of the pin till it came out enough to do the ply trick like I showed you on the first pin. But yeah, absolute nightmare. Loads of WD-40 and just trying to precisely hit. As you can clearly see, I missed a few times, but the pin's out now. And then what we've done since the pin's out is use a wire wheel and like a handheld belt sander just to try and clear up the pins to reuse. Use a bit of brake cleaner to clean the shims that need to go back in the caliper. And next up, we need to remove the old disc. And there's a trick, I think. You slide, I think it's a screwdriver or something behind to give some leverage even to remove it. Because again, like everything on this car, because it's been sat for so long, it's an absolute nightmare to remove. But yeah, I'll update you when we get the disc off. Right guys, another quick update. So, removing the disc, I'm sure it won't be as hard for everyone else like it is for me, because this thing's been moulded on with rust. But WD-40 we've put in each hole, let that soak for a little bit. Then a tip I learned off somebody else was if you use the bracket where the bolts go in for the calipers, if you use, it doesn't really matter what you use, whether it's like a ring spanner or a big screwdriver, but if you put leverage on there and then lean against the disc, that will initially loosen this side of the disc for you. And then what we found was if you use the back of a hammer and just put them in the slits of the vents there just for a little bit of leverage, and then literally it's just back and forth both sides until you can wiggle it off the studs. When it got near enough to this point, what we did was just used the hammer points again and then hooked it onto the rear disc, and then just used that there and then pulled it off. And then as you can see, my dust shields are absolutely fried. But what we did to the other side, which we're doing now, is go over this with a wire brush, clean it all up as best as we can to get all the loose surface rust off, then treat it with some black paint just to make it look nicer and clean it up a little bit. And then once that's done, then we'll assemble the new rear disc, put the new pads in, and then put it back together. Right guys, as you can see, we've cleaned up and took all the surface rust off, and then hit it with some direct to rust black paint. Sorted that out, and then I think what we'll do now is just set up a time lapse of us installing the disc, the pads, and then we can always briefly go over it just to run over how we've reinstalled it all. So yeah, we'll set it with a time lapse. Hey guys, just another quick reminder that if you're doing this on a R33 GTST, you have an adjuster for your shoes inside your brakes. So just make sure when you reattach your disc that this hole is lined up with the handbrake adjuster, otherwise it'll be off center. So yeah, just to make sure you do that, and then take the rubber seal off your old discs and then just reattach it to your new ones. Right guys, this is the end of the video. As you can tell, the British weather has turned on us once again, but the disc's on, caliper's bolted back up, the pins we cleared up are back in, the retaining clip has seated in, but I'm sure I've got 2 new pins anyway, so I'll probably swap that round. Pads are in. Don't know if you saw it on the time lapse, but obviously we use brake cleaner just to clean off the disc, and then use copper grease between the shims and the pads to stop any future squeaking. But I hope you found this video enjoyable, helpful guys, and I'll try and upload a bit more regularly. But yeah, please consider subscribing if you are enjoying it. It means a lot. See you in the next one.